Hello everybody, today I want to talk about some money making strategies that you can use for Deadman mode Armageddon, which is coming back in just over a week on July 19th. Now you may be wondering why you should even care to make money on Deadman mode. After all, it is a separate server that's largely PvP based. What's in it for you? Well, the big idea is that it's also going to be a completely fresh economy starting from scratch. This means that just raw gold is really valuable in the early game just because people need stuff to go buy other things that they need to progress their account and kind of get ahead of the pack. This means that the economy is going to be kind of in a lot of fluctuation at the start. People are going to be buying fast, people are going to be selling fast. In addition, and this is a big reason why I think Deadman mode is popular with players, it is permitted to swap over gold from the Deadman servers and the main servers, which is typically called O7 gold. You can trade with players and they'll usually give you a pretty ridiculous rate, especially early on when Deadman mode goes live. This is why many consider Deadman mode to be one of the best moneymakers in the entire game that just comes around once a year. You can really capitalize on that early exchange rate to make just insane amounts of profit in the first couple of hours. That being said, since you are trading with other players and it is largely on an honor system, just be careful with people trying to scam you. You may want to consider doing your trades in smaller increments. That way, people don't, just run off with all your cash and kind of leave you broke. I'd also personally recommend to use trusted servers that have been doing Deadman mode exchanges for many years. And although they typically will give lower rates than what you might find from a random player at the GE, for example, you do get that safety from exchanging with somebody who's doing thousands of these a day, and they're not going to scam you. I'll list some that I use in the description below so that you can check it out for yourself. Just as an example, you can actually find people who are exchanging for a 1 to 1,000 rate in the first 20-30 minutes of the game. So they'll buy your 10k from the stronghold for 10 million on the main servers. So that's the easiest 10 mil you'll ever make. You just basically log on and do 5 minutes worth of effort. It's insane. All right, and starting off, of course, with dragons. If you're not too sure about Deadman mode, just kind of looking to, dip your toes into it and maybe have some fun, I think dragons are a great beginner-friendly method that you can do. And just kind of give it a shot without, risking much or really having to put a lot of thought into it. It's a pretty straightforward plan. Dragon bones are obviously going to be in really high demand because people are going to be wanting to train their prayer, especially early on to get protection prayers. So this is just a no-brainer way to take advantage of that market. Another big thing to note is that dragons in Deadman mode will actually drop 2 dragon bones, at least on the seasonal Deadman mode, which means every kill you're getting 2 dragon bones and a dragon hide. It's really damn solid. You can find green dragons in the wilderness. I like this spot north of the Ferox Enclave because there's a couple of safe spots. You just got to watch out for this bear that will attack you at lower combat levels, or even high combat levels, I guess. Just do be aware that the Ferox Enclave is not a safe area on Deadman mode, so watch out for that if you go to bank over there. In addition, you can do other kinds of dragons. Blue dragons are also a really popular method over at the Taverley dungeon. There's a lot of safe spot areas here as well, but I would really encourage you to get the 70 agility so that you can use the agility shortcut, as you will be banking a lot and having to make that run every single time is going to feel really, really bad. It's also nice if you die, you can just get back there pretty quick, and you can also use the agility shortcut to get away from people who might not have it. The Isle of Souls also has some blue dragons that you can safe spot, or you could just get creative and kind of find your own dragons to kill. As for actually killing them, magic is actually a pretty good option now that water spells do have elemental weakness against dragons. So even water striking them is not a bad option at all. You can also go to Varrock and get a Dorgeston crossbow and some bone bolts. That's pretty popular as well. And getting yourself a rune sword from the Champions Guild can also be a really nice, easy way to get yourself a early game melee weapon without having to grind out a rune simi. It's only 20k, so it's really not that bad. Again, dragons super simple to set up, and it's pretty much always going to make you good money early on. Really, the only downside is that it does tend to get pretty crowded, both by other people trying to kill dragons and PKers trying to kill you there. Pretty fast as well. And other than that, you will be filling up your inventory pretty fast, which means that you're also going to have to, sell off all your dragon bones because you don't want to be sitting on stacks of hundreds of dragon bones in your bank. You basically want to be selling off after every inventory. And I think that can get kind of annoying having to, sell stuff, go back. But if you just sell your dragon bones and then buy yourself an item to put in the deposit box, that's a really nice, easy way to sort of build your bank wealth and kind of keep moving on Now for the next section, this will require a bit more setup, but is definitely way more lucrative than the dragons. I talked a little bit earlier about how there's just not that much gold in a fresh economy, so actually finding a way to bring gold into the economy is very, very good early on. This is largely going to be done with alchable items and can really make you a lot of money if you have kind of a plan set up for it. First up, and I doubt it's much of a secret, but yeah, zombie pirates are going to be absolutely insane in Deadman mode. I honestly think this might just be like one of the most broken methods ever in Deadman. They have a ridiculous drop table of alchables and supplies that if you can get here early on and just start killing them, you will make so much money. It's actually going to be ridiculous. Now, yes, it is dangerous that this is in a multi-area, so you can get attacked by a lot of players, but just remember that every single time you enter a new combat bracket, including the very first hour, you get 1 hour of PvP protection, which extends into the wilderness as well. So you could be doing zombie pirates risk-free for an hour if you play your cards right. Now, you will probably get attacked outside of that, so again, I would recommend using that grace period as much as you can. And even outside of that, I mean, it is just going to be super, super crowded there. Okay, yeah, good reminder, always bring food. Even with the PvP protection every single hour, I think this place is going to be like absurdly packed. Like there are going to be hundreds of people here. So you may want to wait to get into one of the higher combat brackets just so that there's a little bit less people and then go do zombie pirates for cash. Yeah, I think this place is just going to be absolutely cracked, and I would definitely recommend taking advantage of your grace period here. Come on, man, I'm just trying to make my video. Similarly, Revenant Caves can also be a really, really good option. Just like the zombie pirates, these guys have a really ridiculous loot table with plenty of alchables and supplies that are going to get you a lot of money early on. The big drawback here, however, is that you will need to pay 100k to enter the Revenant Caves. And yeah, getting that early 100k can be kind of tough. So if you have a plan in mind to make that money and then you go to the Rev Caves, it can be a really good way to take advantage of, your grace protection or just be ready to escape. Revenant Caves also have the perk of possibly lucking into one of the, crazy expensive items like the Wildy weapons or getting like an Amulet of Avarice early. And if you hit one of those, I mean, you are going to be making absolute bank on like the first day. Okay, and another insane strategy that I think is going to be really popular is the Wilderness Agility course. In the same update as Zombie Pirates, this dispenser is added that allows you to pay 150k. But the idea is that every time you complete a lap, you'll be getting some supplies and some alchable items as well. As you complete more and more and more laps, you get even better rewards. The caveat is that if you do leave, if you have to run away, you will lose the 150k you paid to activate the dispenser. But if you're actually able to be here for a long period of time without dying or having to leave, you can make absolutely ridiculous amounts of money. Obviously, it's a bit hard to predict the exact rate, but I think that if you were here for about an hour, you could probably make close to 2 million, which, I mean, that's just absurd. Like, that is insane. And a lot of that is in alchables too, so you're not even dealing with the economy there. I really think that if you can find a way to make 150k before you enter the new combat bracket and use the hour of protection here instead, like, holy moly, you could print so much money. And I honestly think you could probably get that set up in like, an hour and a half to 2 hours. Maybe do some dragons at first, sell the bones, and then once you hit the next combat bracket, go here for an hour, and boom, you've made like 2 million that you could probably trade for like a 1 to 50 rate or something like that, even if you're not, doing it super, super fast. The only big downside that I see with the agility method, though, is that you are spending an hour training agility instead of other stats that might benefit you more. Whereas other people might be training combat and getting to higher combat brackets, you're using your grace protection literally just to train agility. And don't get me wrong, agility is not bad, but it is kind of, you're kind of like loading into this strat as like a super early moneymaker if you'd like. Obviously, you can come here later as well, but I expect this place to be fairly crowded with a lot of PKers. Now, I know a lot of people will also recommend the desert agility course where you pick up like the golden pyramids and sell them. And personally, I think it's really mid. Like, I think you don't make a lot of money and you end up failing a lot by doing that. But I can definitely see some value in doing that for a bit if you're training agility anyways, just so you can make, your first 150k. I tried it last time and I was just failing obstacles like constantly, so I wouldn't really recommend it, but it can be an option. Next up, skilling. I think this is one of the most underrated kind of strategies that you can choose to go for Deadman mode. Early on, fishing and cooking are absolutely vital sources of food. And before, people have gotten all the supplies from like zombie pirates and revs and whatnot, they're going to need some kind of food to allow them to actually go get started. You can definitely commit to doing one of these skills early on and try to get it up, because most people are just like completely ignoring them, as you can see from my skills in the last Deadman mode. Crafting can also be a really viable method, just because dragonhide gear is just so valuable early on, and people are going to be dumping a bunch of dragon hides that they got from killing dragons. So if you really commit to crafting and you have like a plan in mind of how you want to do it, I think that you can actually make a lot of bank literally just buying dragon hides, selling like black D hide gear and whatnot. Nice thing about some of these skilling methods, you can also do them like fairly safe, so you're not risking that much. You don't really have to engage with PvP as much. The real drawback with most skilling methods though is that they do kind of lose out on their value like pretty damn fast. However, there are a couple of skilling methods that do continue to hold value throughout, as Deadman mode progresses. Mining and smithing is a great example of that. Being able to mine runite rocks and then smith them into rune items to alch is just like absurdly good cash. Almost every single runite rock does tend to get locked down though, so you will have to either get creative and try to find places like I'm here at the Myths Guild, which requires Dragon Slayer 2, or you might want to prepare yourself to actually fight for the resources, which I really think is what Deadman mode is all about. Even if you're not like great at PvP, I actually think that if you just like fight somebody who's like camping one of these rocks, there's a good chance that you'll be able to push them off of it. Another great option is catching Chinchampas, although this is a pretty big hotspot. Many people will use Chinchampas to train range in like multi areas, so red chins and black chins are incredibly lucrative in Deadman mode. Because this is such a well-known spot though, you are going to be constantly competing with people and constantly getting run up on, so you may want to really try to explore some less popular areas and try to build yourself around getting access to those. For example, unlocking Prif so that you can catch red Chinchampas there, or getting access to the red Chinchampa hunting ground, which does require completion of the hard Western Provinces diary, which is not easy. But if you actually put the time in and get that done, I guarantee you those places will not be very crowded. There's not a lot of PKers that I think are going to be doing that just so that they can get you. It's a huge investment, but if you put the time in and you plan a route, I think this is going to be a very, very good strat. One of the most important things about skilling is taking advantage of all the sigils. There's been a lot of sigils that really dramatically change how skilling works and makes it just a lot faster and a lot more efficient. The Chinchampa sigil is a great example that just allows you to catch more of them. Definitely want to be using this if you're planning this as your route. Another good example is the Infernal Smith, which will turn some of your ores into bars. This was a crazy, insane moneymaker last Deadman mode, so definitely give it a shot. Also, it hasn't been confirmed, but there is a chance that skilling things in dangerous areas will give you a chance of actually getting sigils now too. It's not just for mob drops. So if you're looking for a fun alternative to combat, I think that skilling is a great option. Although you may still want to train your combat up a little bit, either to escape the lower combat brackets, or just so that you're not like a loot pinata with like 10 HP, everybody breathes on you and you die. Another really clever strategy is to make your money just by playing the economy. Because the economy fluctuates so much, people are going to be buying and selling for really large margins that if you can take advantage of and actually, play the economy right, you can flip for like insane amounts of cash. In Deadman mode, any outstanding trades that you have in the Grand Exchange are lost if you die, which means that when somebody is at the Grand Exchange, they're going to want to sell off their items and buy whatever they need, like at really, really good prices. They're not going to be super stingy with their money because nobody wants to be sitting in the Grand Exchange for like, half an hour trying to sell off an item when you could actually go and be making some real progress in the meantime. Actually insane how much you can make without even having to leave a safe zone, just by being kind of smart and planning your trades properly. Super low effort. There's like no risk at all. I mean, it's just have some fun and just mess around with the numbers a bit. Moving on to some higher risk, more involved method, let's talk about some bosses that you can farm. And perhaps the most iconic boss farming spot is going to be Barrows. It's super easy to kill these mobs, especially now that they are also weak to air. So air spells are going to absolutely shred these guys, meaning you can do this at a lot of different combat brackets if you'd like, and still, give a chance at those Barrows pieces. Barrows pieces are going to always be valuable because they're just really damn good. They're really tanky. And I personally prefer to farm items that I think are going to stay consistent and retain a lot of their value, as opposed to trying to luck out on some of the more exclusive and rarer items. Getting here can definitely be a chore, whether you're taking like the rowboat or maybe you have to like go get some Arceus teleport tablets. In fact, you might even want to just be the person that sells teleport tablets to people, because yeah, people will really pay top dollar for that. But in general, this place is really nice because it's easy enough to get away from people by digging down, using the staircase if they follow you to come back up and create distance that way. And in addition, once you've actually found the hidden tunnel to get down there, that can be another really good way to evade anybody trying to PK you. Overall though, barrels is great. It's not going to make you as much money as more dangerous methods, but it is like a really solid way to go. Definitely give this a shot if you're not super confident, but you want to try something a little bit riskier. Vorkath is another boss that I think is really good for Deadman mode. Relica is guarded. It's really only like this dock and then this small area leading up to Vorkath that is a dangerous. So you're gonna have to look out. There's usually a PKer like always waiting at the boat here. But once you're actually inside, it's nice that you get like a little bit of downtime, and you can actually, you know, start fighting the boss without having to worry about anybody. You can also do multiple kills of Vorkath without anybody like bugging you in here, which is really nice. I usually like to use the house portal to get to Relica, and it is dangerous here though, so just keep an eye on that. Sometimes you might have somebody here trying to get you, but once you run in, you're safe, basically. Vorkath is great for all of the alchable items, the bones. You're not really going for uniques or anything like that, but, you know, the dragon hides. There's just so much, like, good, valuable money items that Vorkath prints. And I really like that getting over to Vorkath is not that dangerous either. So I think this is also a great opportunity to kind of dip your toes into some bossing. One thing to know about Deadman mode is that when you are in an instance, such as like this Vorkath boss arena, you don't actually get any experience. So if you're planning on doing something like Vorkath, you want to make sure that, you know, you're not also looking to train your combat experience. Go get that trained first and then come over here. Same idea with like Scurious. You won't be able to sit in the instance area of Scurious and just like farm max combat stats. But if you go into like the big one, you will be able to do it there. You just also will be able to get killed. So, you know, it's a risk. Zulrah is another great option. Just like Vorkath, it does have a lot of good drops in terms of supplies. But I think the cool part of Zulrah is that it also has a pretty good, like, unique drop table as well. Magic Fang is used for Toxic Staff of the Dead, so that's a great item. Serp Helms are also very strong. And even something like an Onyx or a Tanzanite Fang for people who want Blowpipe can still go for a really good price. Even if you're not the best at PVM, some of the sigils really make doing these bosses like really fun, and you can go for much longer trips, which is why I think Zulrah is really cool, because if you are able to do very long extended trips of Zulrah, you can definitely make like a lot of money here. Just be careful. Getting to the boat can be a little bit, you know, dangerous. There's almost always somebody here, so just keep that in mind. I think if you actually log out after the kill, you'll actually like be put here instead of in the middle of town, and then you can just click the boat again and go back out for your next kill. Different combat brackets will also allow you to auto unlock certain quests. So if you do plan on doing Zulrah, you may want to consider on auto unlocking the elf quest line, which will allow you to go and do Zulrah without having to do all those quests and kind of get started on that before people are caught up to you. For some higher level PVM, you can definitely try to go and do the God Wars dungeon if you'd like and you know what you're doing, or if you have, you know, a couple of people to do it with. This place can get, you know, pretty scary because the boss arenas are in multi. But if you make this like a priority and you try to rush this, I've heard most people say that like there's just not even that many people in the God Wars dungeon for like the first 3 or 4 days. So you can like pretty safely farm some of those bosses and get some really nice high valuable items and make bank off that if you'd like. The Desert Treasure 2 bosses can also be really solid just because I don't think a lot of people want to get that quest done. So if you do actually put the time and effort into getting the quest done and farming those bosses, Virtus is a crazy good drop. And there's actually been a change that all of the rings from the Desert Treasure 2 bosses can actually be worn by people who have not completed the quest. So if you do get like a Bellator ring or an Ultor ring, for example, you can actually sell that to people. I think their value is going to go up because people can actually use them. Those items are still pretty damn rare though, so you are going to be grinding to get them. But you know, you can always get lucky and stuff like that. Now, you may have noticed I haven't really talked about raids yet, and that's because personally, I don't think raids are all that great in Deadman mode. First off, they can just be really annoying. Like this lobby here in Tombs of a Masket does have PvP, so even like setting up your group, for example, can just be really frustrating, and like people are killing you, getting everything out of your bank because you do want to have like a relatively decent setup. It's harder to do this in like monk robes. It just makes it like really damn annoying. And even when you finish the raid, you can't just teleport out to safety. You actually have to leave the raid, which means you could like get an item and then get PK'd as you're leaving the raid. It's just like, it's really awful. I've heard a lot of these raids, and like Chambers of Xeric, same idea. They tend to get kind of like locked down by clans that just basically police who gets to enter them on, you know, any individual world. So unless you got like some friends to scout for you as you exit, I just wouldn't bother with raids. I think they're kind of bad. And even aside from that, I really tend to focus on items that are going to be relatively consistent and have a decent drop rate. Sure, if you hit like a shadow or a twisted bow, like you will make some really good money from that, obviously, but you also have to understand that people are going to be operating in like raisable margins of risk. They're not going to be buying like 1 bill shadows, for example, and risking that when they go do some PVM. So even if you do hit like one of these jackpot items, I don't think you're really getting rewarded all that relatively to how much you're kind of putting in as far as effort goes. If you compare it to like barrows, for example, barrow stays cheap. People are okay to use barrows, and so the demand for barrows is really, really high, even if the supply is obviously a lot higher as well. And finally, the king of money making in Deadman mode, we've got Slayer. Slayer is just so ridiculous. There are so many insanely good drops that you can get from there, whether that's black masks from cave horrors, whips from abyssal demons, trident from kraken, or occult necklaces from smoke devils, which have been nerfed, which does make Slayer a little bit less valuable, but I still think it's going to be just the best moneymaker all around. Now, the tricky part about Slayer is that it is a really time demanding strategy, as most of the value from Slayer really comes once you hit some of these higher level Slayer monsters that just make you tons of money. And if you only have a couple hours here and there, you're just not going to be able to level up your Slayer fast enough to keep up with other players. And by the time you do get there, it's just going to be super crowded. You're going to be PKers at pretty much every single Slayer location. But if you do have a lot of time and you can be one of the first people to get to these monsters and farm them out, for example, getting black masks does require a couple of other quests, such as like Cabin Fever, Zoker Flesh Eaters. You can make an absurd amount of money. So if you really do have a lot of time that you can set aside for Deadman mode and you're willing to really put in the hours, Slayer is just so sick and it's a lot of fun. I did it last year and had an insane amount of fun doing. And just keep in mind, there is a lot of grinding though, and there is a lot higher opportunity cost if you do want to, you know, go mess around and do some fun stuff. Because like, let's say you just like go mess around and you do like half an hour of PKing. Well, that's half an hour that somebody else could be spending, you know, training their Slayer and getting ahead of you. But to me, it's like the pinnacle of cat and mouse gameplay in Deadman mode, so I really love it. One of the most important things is to make sure you're going to different locations, just because you are always going to be evading people. So be a bit creative with where you choose to go. The Wilderness Slayer Cave can actually be a wonderful spot to get your Slayer tasks done, because people might not always be looking there and they might be focusing on some of these areas. Also, managing your Slayer points is absolutely vital if you are training Slayer, both so that you can get tasks that are actually giving good experience and good money, and also to avoid a weird situation where you're trying to finish a task, let's say Kraken, for example, and there's just people camping there like nonstop. So if you don't have enough points to just skip the task, you'll have to go to like Turiel and reset your streak, and that's really bad. We don't want to be doing that. There's a great sigil that actually allows you to pick your own Slayer tasks at the cost of Slayer points, and it is more expensive now. It's 60 points instead of 30 points. But it's still going to be like insanely broken. And if you can use this properly without like dumping all your Slayer points, like this will just get you so many good tasks. Also, I know this isn't really a Slayer monster and you can't do this off task, but doing vampires in Darkmire and getting Sins of the Father done is a really, really great way to make some cash. Blood shards are going to go for quite a bit. So if you can get like even an hour here to just, you know, fight them, and you get lucky and hit like a blood shard, but even like their just normal drop table is surprisingly good, this is going to be a really good option. That's going to be it for this video. As always, when it comes to Deadman mode and the competitive nature of the server, so just be creative, come up with your own ideas. You're not going to find the best moneymaker on a YouTube video because then everybody else is going to do it, so it makes it less viable. That being said, I hope this at least helped you get started and get some ideas flowing. If you have any questions about some of the methods I talked about, or if you're just looking for a little bit of advice, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll try to help you out as much as I can. Good luck making absolute bank this Deadman season, and I hope to see you when the servers go live next week. Well, I don't really want to see you because then you'll be at my spots, but you get the idea.